Greetings, brethren. Peace be unto you and those you love. My name is Freeman John Charles Ben Walter of the clan Spenceley. Freeman is a bondservant in Christ. John means gift. Charles means full grown. And Spenceley means servant of the lion. The designation Ben Walter means son of Walter. I'm making this video today to bring to you a copy of my Notice of Understanding, Intent, and Claim of Right, which I sent to the Honorable Robert Nicholson, the Attorney General and Minister of Justice and Consumer Affairs, and the Government House Leader Stephen Harper, and their heirs and assignees, the man acting as the Prime Minister, and William V. Baker, the Commissioner of the Canada Revenue Agency, and James Flaherty, and or his heirs and assignees, the man acting as the Minister of Finance, and Victor Boudreau, and or his assignees, the man acting as the New Brunswick Finance Minister. These were the addressees of the Notice of Understanding, Intent, and Claim of Right, which I am now about to read into the record for you. This document was notarized in 2009 on July 23rd. Page 1. Notice of Understanding and Intent and Claim of Right. Henceforth and forevermore, be it now known to any and all concerned and all affected parties that I, John Charles, of the Spenceley family, a flesh and blood man and living soul, do hereby make oath and state the following is my truth and my law. I confess unto you that Jesus Christ is come in the flesh. 1 John 4:2. By my confession you are notified from whence my spirit comes. I assert and claim that, whereas it is my understanding the nation of Canada is a common law jurisdiction, whereas it is my understanding equality before the law is paramount and mandatory, and where it is my understanding the only form of government recognized as lawful in this common law jurisdiction, the nation of Canada, is a representative one, whereas it is my understanding the representation requires mutual consent, and whereas it is my understanding that in the absence of mutual consent neither representation nor governance can exist, and whereas it is my understanding all acts or statutes restricted in scope and applicability by the Constitution Act, and whereas I understand we create a person and associate that person with our offspring when we register our offspring, page 2, and whereas my teacher has laid out for me in the Holy Scriptures in Luke 20:21, and they asked him, saying, Master, we know that thou sayest and teachest rightly, neither acceptest thou the person of any, but teachest the way of God truly. And whereas I understand Black's Law Dictionary states a human being is not a person because they are a human being, but rather because rights and duties have been ascribed to them. Specifically, the person is the legal subject or substance of which rights and duties are attributes. Whereas I understand Bouvier's Law Dictionary states a free man is one who is the enjoyment of the right to do whatever he pleases, not forbidden by law, one in the possession of the civil rights enjoyed by the people generally. Whereas it is my understanding people in the geographic landmass known as Canada have a right to revoke or deny consent to be represented and thus governed, and where it is my understanding if anyone does revoke or deny consent, they exist free of government control and statutory restraints. And whereas I may, not harm another human being, damage another property, or use fraud or mischief in any of my contracts under the laws of God, nor under those of common law. And where it is my understanding a statute is defined as a legislated rule of society which has been given the force of law, where it is my understanding Section 32 of the Constitution Act limits it to members and employees of government. End of page 2. Whereas it is my understanding those who have a SIN, social insurance number, are in fact employees of the federal government and thus are bound by those statutes created by the federal government, and where it is my understanding that it is lawful to abandon one's SIN, whereas I hereby do abandon said same SIN, whereas I understand I give up certain benefits and legal rights by existing outside of the SIN society, whereas I understand I recapture all of my common law rights existing outside of the SIN society, and whereas I claim the right to collect a pension if I have paid into it, and claim that said right is not affected when I abandon my SIN, and whereas I understand statutes do not have the force of law over those who have not consented to be governed, and whereas I do not consent to representation nor to be thus governed, and where it is my understanding that a claim of right establishes a lawful excuse, and that this factual truth is expressed in Section 39 of the Criminal Code of Canada, and where it is my understanding that if one has lawful excuse, one may choose to not obey a court, tribunal, statute, act, or order, and that this factual truth is expressed in Section 126 and 127 of the Criminal Code of Canada. Whereas it is my understanding that Section 15 of the Criminal Code of Canada does not clearly express that one may be charged for failure to obey a de facto government, and where it is my understanding the people in Canada have a right to revoke or deny consent to be represented and thus governed, and where it is my understanding if anyone does revoke or deny consent, they exist free of government control and statutory restraints. And whereas a freeman on the land has lawfully revoked consent, does not exist free of, and does exist free of statutory restrictions, obligations, and limitations. And whereas I, John Charles of the Spenceley family, am a freeman on the land, and whereas 1 Corinthians 7:22 states, "For he that is called in the Lord, being a servant, is the Lord's freeman. Likewise also he that is called, being free, is Christ's servant." And whereas freemen have a society that operates on God's law and statutes, I claim heirship herewith. Whereas it is my understanding that acting peacefully within the community's standards does not breach the peace nor God's laws, and where it is my understanding that any action for which one can apply for and receive a license must itself be fundamentally lawful action, and whereas I am a freeman on the land who operates with full responsibility and am not a child, I do not see the need to ask for permission to engage in a lawful and peaceful activity, especially from those who claim to have a limited liability.